I was straight until the hot guy next door offered to be my cuddle buddy. The day just couldn't get any worse. I don't know what was more frustrating. Another dead-end date I just came back from with someone I should have liked, or the fact that my new neighbor standing there with his stupidly attractive grin, making me question all my life choices. Seriously, if there was a competition for disastrous dates, I'd be wearing the medal right now. It was that bad. It wasn't the girl. She was great with her dazzling smile and her sweet little voice. But I found myself the least bit interested in her. So there I was, trudging down the dimly lit hallway of my apartment building, dissecting every second of my date. Was it me? Was I the problem? Am I too picky? I mean, there must be a reason all my dates feel like a goddamn nightmare, right? I was so busy thinking about how this was the 5th failed date I had in a month, and I didn't notice the person coming towards me, not until I crashed into them, sending what felt like hundreds of boxes all flying around. "Shit! I'm sorry," I yelped, immediately dropping to my knees to gather the mess I just created. Books, a lamp, a half-empty bag of pretzels. Who moves with pretzels? "It's okay." "Really?" the voice says, low and calm. I look up, prepared to meet with the least mild irritation, but instead, I'm greeted with the most ridiculously attractive grin I've ever seen. The kind that could probably end wars, or at least make you forget you just ruined someone's moving day. "That was one hell of a welcome to the building," he says, still smiling, as if I didn't just knock his entire life over. I'm sorry," I stammered. "I didn't see you." He shrugs, crouching down to help. "Guess I'm hard to miss now, huh?" His grin grows. And, okay. I swear the hallways just got warmer. "I'm Levi, by the way," I muttered, because introductions seem like the least I can do after smashing into him. "Archie," he replied. "Nice to meet you, Levi." For someone who's just gotten stuff scattered across the floor, Archie is disturbingly charming and calm. It's not fair, really. Somehow, I find myself helping him carry his boxes into his new apartment. Mostly because I'm the one who threw his life across the hallway. It's a small place, but cozy, with half-assembled furniture and a faint smell of fresh paint. I set the box on the counter, only for it to spill open and send a cascade of socks piling out. "Nice," Archie said, leaning casually against the doorframe, arms crossed. "You've already seen more into my personal life than I planned on showing anyone tonight. I'm really not this clumsy, I swear," I muttered with a groan. "Oh good, I'd hate for this to be your thing." His smirk is maddeningly perfect, and for a second, I forgot how to breathe. When I tried to hoist another box onto a shelf, it slips, and Archie steps in behind me, catching it just before it crashes. His hands graze mine, and I freeze. Suddenly, hyper-aware of how close he's standing. "You've got to loosen up," he said softly. "You're way too tense." "Sorry," I muttered, stepping back too quietly, and nearly tripping over the stupid bag of pretzels on the floor. He laughs, steadying me with his hand on my arm. "Relax, Levi. You're doing great. By the time we've carried everything in, I feel like I've just run a marathon. Not from the boxes, but from him. His relentless charm, the way he keeps brushing off my awkwardness, like it's adorable, and the fact that I can't stop staring at him. It's exhausting." That night, lying in bed, all I could think about is Archie's stupid, confident grin, his annoyingly smooth voice, and the way he made my days somehow both worse and weirdly better. I mean, sure, he's attractive, objectively fine, ridiculously attractive. But I'm straight. This isn't that. It's just, he's new. He's weirdly flirty, and somehow managed to get under my skin in a matter of minutes. That's all it is, right? I groaned, pulling the blanket over my head. New neighbor, no distraction, nothing more. At least, that's what I keep telling myself. 2 days later, I was standing in the cereal aisle, debating whether to go for the healthy granola bar or the one with the chocolate chunks, when I heard his voice behind me. "Chocolate chunks, huh?" "I'm not judging." I turned to find Archie, looking way too comfortable for someone who just moved in. Really? I said, trying to keep it cool. Not judging. Never. It's a bold choice. He flashed me that grin. And damn, I could feel my pulse quicken. Right. Well, you're an expert on bold choices. You bet. And I'd say you're making the right one. He says, his voice light and teasing. You've got good taste, Levi. I felt my stomach do something weird. Like a roller coaster it wasn't supposed to be on. No, I'm straight. I don't... Thanks, I muttered, trying to brush it off. But that's not my problem right now. Oh? He leaned in a little closer, his voice lowering. What's the problem then? I stared at him, my mind scrambling for answers. What is the problem? Because right now, I'm definitely not focusing on the granola. A week later, I was carrying my laundry down the stairs when I slipped. And of course, I ended up crashing into Archie. This running into Archie unexpectedly has been happening a lot this past week, making me feel all kinds of ways. Ugh, he grunted, steadying me with one hand on my shoulder. You okay? I nodded, pulling away too fast. Why did it feel like his touch was too much? I'm fine, I muttered, though I still could feel his hand on my arm. Good, he said with a grin. Wouldn't want anything to happen to you. I shot him a confused look. You think I'm weak or something? No, he said, standing too close. I think you're stronger than you give yourself credit for. But sometimes, even the strongest people need help. I stared at him, trying to keep my breath steady. This doesn't mean anything, right? He leaned in just a little closer. It's okay. I've got you. I froze. What was that? I wasn't supposed to feel anything from that. Was I? A few days later, I was at the coffee shop, trying to act like I wasn't internally freaking out when I saw Archie stroll in. You know, he said, taking a seat across from me without asking. I was thinking about you earlier today. I almost choked on my coffee. What? Yeah, he said casually. You've been on my mind. No offense, I said, trying not to look too panicked, but I'm pretty sure you don't even know me that well. He raised an eyebrow. Do I really need to know someone to think about them? I fidgeted with my cup. Why is my heart beating so fast right now? Well, I think you've got the wrong idea about me, Levi, he said, voice dropping to a lower, almost teasing tone. I'm a lot better at this than you think. Better at what? Making you think about me. He leaned in, just close enough for me to notice, and I'm clearly succeeding. What the hell? I looked down at my coffee, trying not to let the heat I was feeling show on my face. The next evening, I was on my way up to my apartment, exhausted after a long day of work. The elevator door slid open, and I saw Archie standing there, looking like he just came from a photo shoot. Seriously, this guy couldn't even look bad if he tried. Hey, he said with that grin, his voice as smooth as ever, and I couldn't help but feel a little lighter, even though I was already mentally preparing myself for another awkward, mind-bending interaction. We stood in silence for a minute, until without warning, the elevator came to a sudden halt, jerking both of us slightly. What the hell? I muttered, reaching for the emergency button, and before I could press it, I heard Archie's breath catch. I looked over at him. He was standing a little too still, his eyes wide and panicked, his hands gripping the railing, like it was his lifeline. Archie? I said, my voice uncertain. His gaze snapped to mine, and I could see the fear in his eyes. I can't do this. His voice was shaky now, the smooth charm completely gone. I'm claustrophobic, Levi. I hate small spaces. I felt my stomach flip. This was the first time I've ever seen him this vulnerable. Archie, who always had his shit together, who always knew how to make people laugh and flirt his way through anything. This guy was scared. I didn't know what to do. Hell, I had no idea how to handle this. But then I realized I couldn't just stand there and watch him fall apart. Before I could think about it too much, I moved closer to him, instincts kicking in. Hey, it's okay, I said softly, reaching for his hand. Just breathe, all right? His hand trembled when it touched mine, and that's when I made the decision. I hesitated for a second, but then I warped my arms around him, pulling him in close. He stiffened at first, like he was too shocked to even react. But then he slowly let out a breath. "Focus on me," I whispered. "In and out. Slowly. I'm right here." I felt his body relax against mine, the tension easing little by little. It was the weirdest thing, but I couldn't deny the strange pull of comfort. I felt holding him like this, the warmth of his body pressed against mine. But I couldn't let myself think about that right now. My stomach was in knots, my pulse racing, and there was the confusing feeling swirling inside me. What the hell was I doing? This wasn't supposed to happen. I wasn't supposed to feel good. Not like this. I could feel Archie's breath steadying. "Thanks," he muttered, his voice quieter now, a little hoarse. "Anytime," I managed to say, though my mind was still scrambled, trying to ignore the fact, for the first time since I met him, I didn't mind the closeness. I didn't mind the way his hand still lingered on mine, or how I felt his heart thumping beneath his shirt. The elevator jolted back to life, and for a brief moment, I almost wish it stayed stuck a little longer. The next day, I was doing my best to pretend the last night never happened. Not that I had done anything wrong. I was just being a decent human being. That's all. So what if I held Archie a little too long? Or noticed how warm he was? Or how he smelled kinda nice? None of that meant anything. At least, that's what I keep telling myself. Then came the knock at my door. I opened it, finding Archie still standing there, hands stuffed in his pockets, his usual confident smirk firmly in place. Like he already knew I'd say yes to whatever he was about to suggest. "Hey," he said, "I just wanted to say thanks for last night." I cleared my throat. "Oh, yeah, no big deal," I was thinking. "I owe you one. How about dinner and a movie?" My treat. I should have said no. Every logical part of me screamed to shut this down. But the truth was, I didn't hate the idea. Hell, I didn't even dislike Archie. Not really. And maybe that was the problem. "All right," I said like I wasn't already regretting it. "Sure." A short while later, I was sitting at his table, eating surprisingly good takeout, and feeling oddly comfortable. We talked about random things at first. His move, my job, his complete inability to assemble furniture without injury. But then, somehow the conversation drifted back to last night. "You're really freaked out in there," I said, trying to keep it casual. Archie huffed a laugh. "Well, yeah, small spaces and I don't get along. Not exactly my proudest moment." I shrugged. "It's no big deal. Everyone's got something." He gave me a look. "And what's yours?" I hesitated, but weirdly, talking to Archie wasn't like talking to anyone else. With him, I didn't have to fake anything. Not like all those dates where I forced to laugh, faked a smile, and counted the minutes until I could leave. I didn't know, I guess. I'm not great at figuring out what I want. Archie tilted his head, like he was reading between the lines. But he didn't press. Instead, he just nodded. "That's fair." Later, we settled on his couch for the movie. I told myself to stay on my side, to keep my distance. But at some point, exhaustion won, and I drifted off. When I woke up, my head was against Archie's chest, my entire body practically draped over him, like some kind of goddamn rom-com cliche. I jolted upright, heart hammering. "Shit, sorry." Archie blinked awake, his lips curling into a lazy smirk. "You make a great cuddle buddy. Want to try that again?" I panicked, got up in an instant, like I'd just been electrocuted. "I have to go," I blurted, scrambling off the couch and practically sprinting to the door. If I didn't look back, because if I did, I wasn't sure what the hell I'd do. 1 week later, avoiding Archie had become my new full-time job. If I heard his door open, I took the stairs instead of the elevator. If I saw him in the lobby, I suddenly remembered I had forgotten something upstairs. If he texted, left it on read. It wasn't mature, but dealing with whatever the hell was happening in my brain seemed worse. And then I saw him. I actually saw him with someone else. Some guy stepped out of his apartment, grinning as he adjusted his jacket. He turned back to Archie and pulled him into a hug. "Last night was a blast," he said, shooting him a wink before strolling down the hall. I stood frozen in place, stomach twisting uncomfortably. It wasn't my business. I had no reason to care, but apparently My body hadn't gotten the memo because my jaw clenched and my pulse spiked. I was jealous, which is impossible because I didn't have feelings for Archie. I liked women. I'd gone on dates, bad ones, sure, but still, just to prove a point to myself. I got back from the dating apps and forced myself to go out with someone new that night. And it was terrible. Again. I spent the entire time picking up my food, nodding absent-mindedly, while my date rambled about her yoga retreat. My brain was too busy thinking about that guy from the morning to pay attention to whatever she was saying. When I got home, I was muttering under my breath, like a crazy person, barely noticing Archie leaning against his doorframe. "Another bad date?" he asked, smirking. I snapped. "What do you care? Since you had a blast last night." Archie blinked. "Huh? You know, with your little sleepover guest." His face split into a grin. "Wait, are you jealous?" I scoffed. "No, It was game night, Levi." "What? My best friend was over. We played Mario Kart and ordered too much pizza." "That's the blast you're so upset about." "Oh." Archie crossed his arms, his voice teasing. "I mean, if you wanted to spend the night with me, you could have just asked." I groaned. "Forget it. Now come in. We'll talk about your tragic love life. Eat, maybe cuddle." I glared. He grinned. And somehow, I found myself stepping inside. We ate, we talked, and we ended up curled up on the couch, my head resting against his shoulder. It should have felt weird, but it didn't. It felt good. Really good. Then Archie turned slightly, his face inches from mine. My breath caught his gaze, flickering to my lips, then back up. And then he kissed me. Slowly and tentatively. For a second, I melted into it, but just as fast, panic kicked in. I pulled away, heart racing. "I can't do this." Archie exhaled slowly, eyes searching mine. "But I think you do want to." I opened my mouth, but no words came out. He leaned back, giving me space. "When you're ready to admit it, you know where to find me. Until then, I won't disturb you anymore." I left without another word, but there was a stinging in my chest that hadn't been there before. A few days later, the past few days were weird. No teasing, no smirks, no Archie popping out of nowhere with some flirtatious comment that made my stomach do stupid things. True to his word, he didn't disturb me. And I hated it. I hated how quiet everything felt. How much I noticed his absence. How my apartment felt colder, emptier, like I'd somehow gotten used to him just being around. I told myself this was what I wanted, that I needed the space to clear my head. But the more I tried to ignore it, the more obvious it became. I didn't want space. I wanted him. And the realization hit me like a goddamn freight train. I liked Archie. I wanted to be with Archie. And even if it went against everything I thought about myself, even if it meant I wasn't straight like I thought myself to be. So that night, before I could overthink it, I found myself knocking at his door. My heart was a mess. My stomach flipping like I was about to do something monumentally stupid. Archie's door opened, his expression unreadable. "Levi?" "I'm an idiot," I said, voice rushed. A complete, absolute idiot, because it took me this long to realize that I want this. I want you. Archie studied me for a beat, then stepped closer, his eyes searching mine, like he was waiting for me to back out. I didn't. Instead, I closed the space between us, grabbing his shirt and kissing him before I could chicken out. His lips were warm, familiar in a way I hadn't let myself acknowledge until now. He kissed me back without hesitation, pulling me in, and for the first time in weeks. Everything made sense. When we finally broke apart, I was breathless, my hands gripping his shirt like I was afraid he'd disappear. Archie smirked, but his voice was so soft when he said, "So, does this mean I call you mine?" I let out a shaky laugh, pressing my forehead against his. Yeah, it does." Archie grinned and kissed me again. And this time, I didn't pull away. After 1 month, somehow being with Archie felt like the easiest thing in the world. We spent lazy Sundays tangled on his couch, watching terrible movies and mocking them until we were breathless with laughter. He dragged me out to new restaurants just to see my reaction, and I'd make him suffer through my awful attempts of cooking in return. I never felt more at home with someone, like I could just be me, no pretending, no forcing anything. But outside the comfort of his apartment, things were different. I wasn't ready for the looks, the questions, the implications. It's like that I didn't want to be with Archie. I didn't know how to be with him, where the whole world could see. And tonight, I knew I screwed up. We were out grabbing food when Archie reached for my hand. It was natural, easy, but my body reacted before I could think, and I pulled away. And the look on his face gutted me. He didn't say anything then. But back at his apartment, the silence between us was thick. "So what?" he finally said. "You can kiss me behind closed doors, but God forbid anyone else sees. That's not..." I sighed. "It's just complicated." Archie let out a sharp laugh, shaking his head. "No, Levi. It's actually really simple. You either want to be with me, or you don't." His voice was tight, controlled, but I could hear the frustration beneath it. "That's so fair," I muttered. "What's not fair?" he shot back. "Is feeling like I'm some dirty little secret?" I opened my mouth, but no excuse felt right. "If you're ashamed of me," he said, his voice quieter now, "then maybe we should just end this." "But Archie," I tried to say before he cut me off. "No, Levi. Just leave. I don't think I can talk to you right now," he said, opening the door for me. I slowly made my way out of his apartment. The horror struck me. Maybe I was about to lose the best thing that ever happened to me. 2 days later, I have been miserable for the past 2 days, all because Archie was now avoiding me. I tried everything to talk to him, but no response. I knew I had hurt him, and now I had to fix it. 2 days was all it took for me to realize that I couldn't let some stupid fear of accepting my identity or what Archie and I shared ruin it all. I made my way to his apartment with a bouquet in my hand. All I could think about was what I needed to fix this. I knocked on Archie's door, gripping the bouquet like it was the only thing keeping me together. When he opened it, his face was unreadable, blank, but I could see the hurt underneath, and I hated it. "I needed you to come with me this weekend," I blurted, before he could shut the door in my face. "It's my birthday, and I need you there." He folded his arms. "Are you sure about that? Because 2 days ago, you weren't even sure if you wanted to be seen with me." I winced. "I deserve that, but I swear, this is different. Please, Archie." Studying me for a long moment. "Fine, but only because it's your birthday." But how we ended up here, in my hometown at my birthday party, surrounded by my friends and family, and Archie standing off to the side, like he still wasn't sure if he belonged. I wasn't having it. I grabbed his hand. "Come with me." What? I didn't give him a choice, leading him outside into the backyard where the soft fairy lights twinkled above us. And there, in the middle of all of it, was something I'd spent all afternoon setting up. A ridiculous oversized fairy lights, covered blanket fort. Archie blinked. "You did this?" "Well, technically, my nieces and nephews did, but I supervised." He huffed out a laugh. "Why?" "Because," I exhaled, "this was my favorite thing to do as a kid. My safe place. And I figured, if I'm going to stop being a coward and ask you to be mine, I should do it somewhere that actually means something." His expression softened. I cleared my throat. "So, Archie, will you make me the luckiest man alive and be my boyfriend?" For a second, he just stared at me. Then he rolled his eyes, grinning. "Get in the fort, idiot." I barely had time to react before he was tugging me inside, wrapping me in his arms and pressing the softest, sweetest kiss to my lips. "Of course I will," he mumbled against my lips, but I wasn't done. When I walked back inside, I didn't let go of his hand. Instead, I clinked my glasses loudly, making everyone turn towards us. "I have something to say," I announced, glancing at Archie before looking back at the crowd. "I've spent my whole life being scared of what people might think, of admitting what I want, but not anymore." I squeezed his hand. "I love this man," I said, voice steady, sure, "and I want everyone to know he's mine officially." The room went silent for a beat. Then, cheers! Claps, whistles, someone shouted, "Finally!" I turned to Archie, heart pounding. His eyes were wide, and his lips parted in shock. In that moment, I realized I wasn't afraid anymore. Not of what people thought, not of what Archie and I had. Because this was the best thing that had ever happened to me. And I was done pretending otherwise. Before I could say anything else, he grabbed my face and kissed me, right in front of everyone. "About damn time." "About damn time," he murmured against my lips. And just like that, I knew I was exactly where I meant to be. 3 months in, and my life with Archie felt right, natural, like something I should have done a long time ago, instead of being a complete idiot about my feelings. He officially moved in a month ago. And now, not that he wasn't already sleeping over most nights before that, but now it was real. His books were mixed in with mine on the shelf. His stupidly expensive hair products cluttered my bathroom counter. And the closet that once belonged entirely to me, now half his. I should have been annoyed, but somehow I liked it. I liked us. Mornings had become my favorite part of the day. Like today when I woke up to find Archie in the kitchen, wearing my hoodie, sleeves pushed up, his hair still in a mess from sleep. He was still making coffee, swaying lightly to whatever song was playing through his earbuds. I wrapped my arms around his waist from behind, pressing a sleepy kiss to his side of his neck. "Morning," I mumbled. He hummed, leaning into me. "You just want my coffee? I want you and your coffee. Equal priorities." He turned in my arms, rolling his eyes. But then, there was a smile tugging at his lips. "You're such a liar." "Okay, but a liar who loves you." I stole a kiss, grinning when he sighed against my mouth, as if he was trying so hard not to be charmed. But he always was. The days blurred in the best way. Movie nights, lazy Sunday mornings tangled in sheets. Archie stealing my sweater even though he swore they were too big for him. Everything felt so easy, safe. Hours until she came back. Sophia. She and I had a short-lived thing years ago. But more than that, she'd been my childhood friend. The kind of friend who knew all my family's embarrassing stories, who my mom still called her sweetheart, who had a way of making herself feel at home no matter where she went. She was only in town for a while, and I hadn't seen her in years, so of course we caught up. But maybe I've been too caught up. I didn't notice at first the way Archie started staying quiet whenever Sophia was around, how he'd smile, but it never quite reached his eyes. I was too busy splitting my time between her and him, thinking I was balancing it all just fine. Then, one night I found him sitting on the couch, scrolling through his phone, barely looking up when I came home. "Hey," I greeted, flopping beside him. "Hey," he said without his usual warmth. I frowned. "You okay?" "Yeah, just tired." I nudged his knee with mine, but he didn't nudge back. The pit in my stomach grew. "It's nothing." I knew him too well for that. And for the first time in 3 months, things didn't feel easy anymore. A week later, I walked into the apartment, still laughing about some ridiculous scene from the movie. My mind was still half on Sophia's commentary. She always had a way of making the most dramatic scenes sound absurd. But the second I stepped inside, the air shifted. Archie sat at the dining table, a casserole in front of him, along with a few candles flickering softly. I swallowed. "Hey, you cooked for me?" He nodded once, face unreadable, guilt creeping up my spine. I'd forgotten. It was Thursday. Dinner date night. I ran a hand through my hair, trying for a sheepish smile. I ate too much popcorn at the theater. Kinda full. Something in Archie's expression cracked. He didn't say anything. He just pushed his chair back and stood up. "Archie? I'm going to sleep." I frowned. "Wait, what's wrong?" "Nothing." I sighed, rubbing out my jaw. "If it's about the food, I'll have some." He turned, voice sharp. "It's not about the food." I blinked. His hands curled into fists at his side. "It's about how I spent hours cooking for you, while you were busy enjoying the movies with your friend." I stared at him, caught off guard. "Archie, Come on, it was just a movie. No, it's not just about the movie. His voice rose, clearly frustrated. It's about the fact, for the past few days, I've been sitting here, wondering if I'm even a priority to you. I felt my own irritation spike. You're being ridiculous. Sophie and I are just friends. Yeah? And what were you before? I clenched my jaw. That was 3 years ago. He let out a hollow laugh. Years ago, sure, but your family still adores her, and they still talk about how good you two were together. And you spend every second with her like nothing changed. His voice turned quieter, like we don't exist. I exhaled sharply. Archie, you're being insecure. His jaw tightened. Are you being blind? He shook his head, his eyes flashing with something vulnerable. Something that made my chest ache. You might be okay being with me now, but what about when things get hard? Are you going to run back to what's easy? What's normal? I opened my mouth, but nothing came out. His shoulders sagged like he was tired of fighting. I need space, he said, voice thick. Maybe even a break. Then he grabbed his jacket and walked out the door before I could even stop him. And as the door shut behind him, I couldn't ignore the ugly truth sitting in my chest. He might be right. Sophia was only in town for a few days, and the fact had blinded me, made me push Archie aside without even realizing it. I hadn't meant to make him feel second place, but maybe that's exactly what I have done. Now, he was more distant, insecure, all because of some past that didn't matter anymore. And now because of my own stupidity, I was about to lose the one thing that truly mattered. 2 days later. 2 days. 2 days since Archie walked out, and still haven't come home. I called, I texted, I even debated showing up at his favorite cafe and causing a public scene, but I had the feeling that'd make things worse. The only sign of life I got was when one of his friends stopped by to grab some stuff for work. I practically begged him to tell me what Archie was, to at least let me talk to him, but all I got was a firm, he needed space. I didn't want to give him space. I wanted to fix this. So naturally, I showed up at his workplace. Archie's eyes widened slightly when he saw me. You shouldn't be here. 5 minutes, I said. Just 5 minutes, then I'll leave. He exhaled, clearly debating it, before giving a short nod. Fine. 5 minutes. I pulled out a small worn notepad and handed it to him. His brows knitted together as he read the title, 100 Reasons Why You're the Best Thing That Ever Happened to Me. His fingers tightened around the cover. You're kidding me. I spent all night writing that. I have the cramps to prove it. He stared at it for a moment, flipping the pages. His expression shifted. The further he read, annoyance fading into something softer, something achingly familiar. His lips parted slightly when he reached for the last few lines. Tears welled up in his eyes, and I knew I had him. I took a step closer, lowering my voice. I get it now. I've messed up. I got so caught up in the past that I didn't see what was right in front of me. I never meant to make you feel second place, Archie. I swear to you, you're not. He looked at me, still hurt. You say that now. I mean it, I cut in. You asked me if I'd run back to what's easy when things got hard. But the truth is, you're the only thing I've ever been sure about in my whole life. Not because you're easy or convenient, but because you're it. My endgame. No matter if things are easy or hard, he swallowed, blinking a few times. And Sophia is just a childhood friend. I got carried away, but it was never about missing her or what we had. I was just stupid. I took his hand, squeezing lightly. And I swear I will never make you feel ignored again. Not for her, not for anyone. He let out a shaky breath, looking down at the book again before shutting it with a quiet thud. You really did write all that? He asked. Every last word, I grinned. I even draw you a couple of stick figures in there, if you didn't notice. He shook his head, letting out a small laugh. You're crazy. Yeah, crazy for you. Archie laughed as he pulled me into his arms, softly kissing the top of my head. Does this mean I'm forgiven? I asked sheepishly, slightly pulling back. Yes, you silly. But now, before they fire me, let me get back to my work. I'll see you at home, he said softly. And just that one word was enough to describe what I felt for Archie. Home. My home. Okay. I'll be waiting with wine and slightly burnt pizza. That's all I can manage to make. Both of us laughed as Archie kissed me deeply before I left. At the moment, I knew him and I were forever. We were forever, no matter what came our way. 2 years ago, when Archie moved into my building, I never thought I'd be standing here excitedly nervous as he stood in front of me, looking perfect in his tux. Hell, 2 years ago, I didn't even know I could feel all this from a man. But Archie, my Archie, changed everything. Now, as we stood at the altar, surrounded by friends and family, I realized we've been through a lot. All the ups and downs, the misunderstandings and insecurities. But it had all led us here, to this point where nothing else mattered but us, with Sophie by my side, acting as the best woman, her smile bright with pride and love. I knew this was the perfect moment, as Archie's eyes locked onto mine. I knew there was no turning back, no more doubts. He was my home, and I was his. And as we moved forward into the future, hand in hand, I knew this was the beginning of a lifetime together. The end. What moment made you realize something new about yourself or your identity? Thank you for watching. Consider subscribing to become a part of our Rainbow Force. And stay wholesome.